Guys, what is up? Greg here, and I got a bunch of records to show you that I've collected over the last, let's say, 2 months, and I'm going to show you each record and the record store that I got it from, if it's worth mentioning. So let's get it kicked off with Albert Ayler, great free jazz sax player. This is live at the Village Vanguard, 1967. And did you know that John Coltrane was instrumental in getting Albert signed to the Impulse label? And actually, Coltrane was in the audience for this recording, and there's a song, side one, for John Coltrane. So this is considered kind of a classic Albert Ayler and free jazz from the 60s. So the store I got this at is called Grady's in Ventura, California. That's Grady's Record Refuge. Very cool, funky, kind of a hipster, vintagey vibe, nice size store. And the vintage vibe is there's a lot of old stuff all over the place, old stereo stuff and cool old posters on the walls and very funky, funny bin cards. And it's got a good, funny vibe. So there was a photo on the wall, or a poster, I should say, of Clint Howard, if you know who that is, the less famous, less handsome brother of Ron Howard. I put that on my Instagram, and Clint Howard himself responded to it and said, "Hey, that's cool. Did you know I had a band called Clint and the Kempsters or something?" He had some bizarre, horrible punk band in like the 80s, but check that out. Follow me on the Instagram and follow Clint Howard. Why not? I don't know why you would. Okay, here's a record I got a couple days ago from the collection of Greg Buys Crappy Records for $1 that are beat up. Oliver Nelson Orchestra, the great Oliver Nelson, great composer, arranger, and his most famous record, Blues in the Abstract Truth, came out the same year this did, 1961. But that other record was on Impulse. This record is on Prestige, and in the liner notes, this light is funky. In the liner notes, he says that the producer came to him and said, "Hey, why don't you do a record about sort of African music?" And Oliver said, "Well, I don't know anything about African music. Okay, I'm going to listen to a bunch of African records from Uganda and all over the place and get a feel for it." Well, to me, this record is not very African. It's really big band, sort of, very, very composed and arranged and written out. It's not very improvised. There is some improvisation on it, but Oliver Nelson, one of the greatest composers and arrangers of his day, was also a good player. This is not an essential record, but if you're really interested in Oliver Nelson and you like the whole big band style, you might find it interesting. I got it for $1 because it's beat up. It's got some water damage, but the vinyl is okay. It's not great. It's good enough for me. The players on here are really not famous. Most of them I haven't heard of. Irby Green on trombone I've heard of, have at least one of his records. And Ed Shaughnessy, the drummer, okay? Percussion is the main thing about African music, right? So they get a white Irish drummer. Ed Shaughnessy is the guy who played with the Johnny Carson band for decades, had the big mutton chop sideburns. And I actually met Ed Shaughnessy at the post office here down the street from my house. He's so recognizable. I just said, "You're Ed Shaughnessy, the band drummer. You're the greatest," and shook his hand, and that's my Ed Shaughnessy story. So the record store I got this at is called CD Trader here in Los Angeles. All these are in Los Angeles. And big store, well-curated jazz section, a lot of emphasis on new arrivals, and they buy a lot of good collections. They've got CDs, DVDs, bargain bin stuff, like that was $1. But the problem with that store, okay, I'm going to spill the beans here. I've been going there for 25 years. No one there knows my name or gives a shit about me. Okay? I'm saying it, I like stores where they know you, but we'll get there. We'll get to some other stores where they do know me. Okay. So, Todd Rundgren. Mid-70s, 1978, Bearsville Records. This was a very cool cover at the time. It's like a television screen. But Todd, Hermit of Mink Hollow, and the big hit on here, not huge hit, but All the Children Sing is a cool song. What other songs? This record was a huge thing when I was like in junior high because We had a live-in guy, a high school student. He was the guy who walked around school going, Todd is God, Todd is the greatest, Todd is ahead of his time. So this album was playing at my house a lot in the 70s, but I didn't have a copy till I found this in the bargain bin. It's beat up, that's why it's $3.99 minus 10%. But the vinyl is fine. Vinyl plays beautifully, and Todd was such a major thing in the 70s, such a great songwriter, and he produced so many bands, and their sound is really at the Todd sound. Okay, at the same record store in the bargain bin, two of a kind, Paul Desmond and Jerry Mulligan, two of the greats from the West Coast cool jazz era. Look how white Jerry Mulligan is. I mean, he's like the whitest, red hair. It's like the Conan O'Brien Irish look there. Paul Desmond from the Dave Brubeck Quartet. Some classics, but this is a nice record for a couple bucks. And my son got this one at the same record store, Jaco. My son is a major Jaco fan. Albert Mengelsdorf, I don't even know that person. He's a trombone player. No wonder it wasn't that expensive. Who likes bone music? It's all right. Jaco, Alphonse Mouzon, great drummer, 1976. Anyway. So the record store I got those three at is called Deadly Wax. New store here in the San Fernando Valley. Really cool. My favorite new store. Small, beautifully curated. There's no junk on the shelves. He changes it up constantly. Curation, to me, that's like important. Like when I go in there, I want every record in the jazz section. There's like literally, if I won the lottery, I could go in there and buy out half the stuff in the jazz section. And then next week there's more good stuff. And the guy's cool. Todd, who owns the place, knows my name, says hi, knows what I like. That's the cool thing about a cool record store, right? Okay, going through the list, guys, but I'm going to mention the record store in each case. Patsy Cline's Golden Hits for $3. You got that at Grady's, and I forgot to include that in my Grady stack, but this is for my wife, loves Patsy Cline. What tunes are on here that I know? Walking After Midnight. So this is like a greatest hit, so $3. Patsy Cline on Everest Records, in good shape. All right, how about some Ornette Coleman? This is that weird Italian label. Fabri Editoriale, whatever it is. The great masters of jazz. All the records on this label have the exact same sort of cover art. And they're basically licensed to an Italian label from, I think most of them are licensed from the Black Lion label. Black Lion originals are valuable, very cool. So this is a record I don't think you're going to find easily in the original form. And I don't know what the original is even called. It says licensed from Storyville Records. Inexpensive way to collect some classic jazz is when it comes out on this Italian label. The pressings are good. The artwork and the book inside of these records is usually really nice. I did not get this at a record store. I got that at a trade involving Mr. Rob at the Waxed, and the exact terms and conditions of that trade have been sealed for probably 50 years to future generations because that deal was too, let's say, controversial. I won't get into it. Don't ask, please. Right. Now I have a stack of 5, 6, 7 records that I got at one store. The store is called Record Safari. But I'll get through the records before I tell you about the store that I just discovered. Art Ensemble of Chicago, Certain Blacks. It's not about all blacks, it's only about certain blacks. Art Ensemble of Chicago, very free jazz collective sort of group. Lester Bowie, kind of the most famous guy on that label, but Roscoe Mitchell is on here, and other people. Long, free, jazzy songs like you might imagine. Original. This is on Inner City, but this looks like it's a re-release. This was released 76, but I think the original was 1970. Art Ensemble of Chicago. How did you find this for $5, Greg? That's amazing. At the same store, the same outing, I took a chance on a jazz thing I had never heard of. Rudolf Desek, Czechoslovakian jazz guitar player. It's got Andrew Cecil on here. They do a Carla Bley song. Just some weird, I like to try weird stuff, okay? I just do. Here is the exciting part of this outing to Record Safari. Sun Ra and his Solar Orchestra, Secrets of the Sun. I don't know if you can see the price tag on there, but geez, a new Sun Ra record. It should be 20 or 30 bucks. How did I get it for a lot less? I'm kind of embarrassed and guilty that I got all these records for such a great price. Brand new condition. It wasn't sealed, but it's in brand new condition. This is a re-release, obviously. An original Sun Ra could go for $100, $200, $300. Sun Ra did so many records. I think he's composed like 1,000 songs and released 200 or 300 records during his, before and after his lifetime. There's Sun Ra, one of the monsters of bizarre, free, weird jazz. And I got a stack of Sun Ra here, and I can't really get into the details in terms of the history of each one. Maybe we'll do that at a future point. Sun Ra and his intergalactic infinity orchestra and intergalactic space travel in sound, My Brother the Wind, Volume 11. His record titles are so cool and bizarre, and his record artwork is so cool and bizarre. And players on here, Marshall Allen, I will mention, on sax, is still leading the band, even though Sun Ra died decades ago. Marshall Allen has been with the band, but he is 98, I think, still getting it done, still touring. But these early Sun Ra records, monotone, simple artwork. In Sun Ra's early days, he would print 50 or 100 or 200 records like after every show, and then the next show he would sell records from the previous show. And a lot of the members of the band would do their own art, on top of the cover. So those original hand-arted records are worth a fortune. These re-releases can go for 20 or 30 bucks. Okay, next is another Sun Ra. And if you can read the weird artwork, it says Continuation. Continuation, Sun Ra and his Afro Infinity Orchestra, Series 2. Early Sun Ra, simple artwork. And at the same store, I got Lester Bowie, who I showed you was the trumpeter behind Art Ensemble of Chicago. Lester Bowie, he does Lonely Woman. Is that the Ornette Coleman tune? And John Stubblefield plays sax on here. And John Hicks on piano. Cecil McBee drums. Some cool players on here. 1974 on Muse Records. Brand new condition, Lester Bowie. Very cool. And let's see, there's more from Record Safari. One more, or at least one more. Anthony Braxton, one of the very experimental sax players. 7 Standards. This record is actually very common. It's on the Magenta imprint, which is an imprint of Windham Hill, I think, or maybe A&M Records. Like I say, this is one of his more common records because it's standards. It's not his way out wacky avant-garde composition. So what songs are on here? Joy Spring. So those records are from Record Safari, new store in Los Angeles, way out in Silver Lake. And I went with a little VC meetup outing with Mr. Mike, also the leader of a band that you may have heard of called Balmoria, which I somehow obtained in the same outing, believe it or not. Record Safari, long skinny store, lots of constant rotation of stock, which is great because the prices are very reasonable, as you can see from here, and not super well curated. Like there's some stuff that's just okay, but there's some stuff that's good. The new arrivals section, really cool. Record Safari is the store. The guy who's got the movie, whatever that movie is on the YouTube, the story of Record Safari, whatever. Somehow we got a full-length feature film documentary made of this guy going around the country, blah, blah, blah. Go watch it for yourself. I didn't really meet the guy. The lady who worked there waited on me. He didn't really. They got the hipster look thing going, LA hipsters. Why would I go there? Because I'm not a hipster. I was invited by Mike from Balmoria. And Mike hooked me up with a couple of his records. I haven't even cracked open yet. I haven't cracked open a lot of the records I've gotten in the last couple of weeks. Balmoria's stuff is very sort of ambient, mellow, chill. I think there's another record here that I can't find. I'm missing 2 or 3 records from this record store day, but we're going to have to do part 2 of this video because this thing's already gone on too long. But the records that I got and the record stores that I got them from, and I usually post these on Instagram, so feel free to follow me on Instagram, Vinyl Rundown, same name on Twitter and the TikTok, and I look forward to following any and all of you folks that have accounts and show your records online. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Keep spinning, etc.